Is recovery same as rest days or there is more to it?
A recovery day can also be a light exercise day. Breathwork is a phenomenal way balance between pain alleviation, strengthening, recovery, and then sustaining it thereafter.
Welcome back to the Aging Matters. We have talked about posture and fitness. Today we talk about recovery. Today again we have Shayamal Vallabhjee with us, and together we'll uncover how rest, repair and recovery aren't luxuries, but they are essential for staying strong and aging resilient. Let's begin. Hello Shayamal, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Vikram. Recovery, probably one of the subjects that is least spoken about and probably misunderstood. So very excited about this module.
Right. Let's answer this one question first off for our viewers. Is recovery same as rest days or there is more to it?
Well, rest is one aspect of recovery. Yes, taking a day off, giving your tissue some time to rejuvenate, to relax, to repair, it is part of it. Sleep is one of the most essential aspects of recovery. But yes, there is way more to it. The reason why there's way more to it, and that balance with what is way more, has to actually do with training load, actually has to do with your movement and your exercise. Because as we discussed in previous episodes, cellular tissue has a memory to it. Right? That memory is critically important to how your body recovers and repairs. So if you keep pushing the body to exhaustion each time, exhaustion becomes a cellular memory. It remembers that exhaustion and it brings on the onset of exhaustion earlier. So when we work with professional athletes, for example, and we train them to recover, we are training them to recover under lower intensities. We're teaching the body the impact of a lower intensity exercise and movement. So to answer your question, recovery is not always rest days. A recovery day can also be a light exercise day. And that's what it is for an athlete. It's very, very rarely is it a zero day. It could be a light exercise day, but not a no exercise day. And this is probably the biggest myth between amateurs or corporates and professional athletes, where the others think that rest days are zero activity days. But in the mind of a professional athlete, it's just a low intensity day, which is giving the body the time to recover, rejuvenate. But that low intensity exercise is also getting the heart pumping and it's improving your circulation. And your circulation is critically important to flushing out toxins and repairing tissue.
Yeah, so you alluded to this slightly, that there is cellular memory in play, and because of that recovery becomes important. But when you're exhausted, probably after a long day or after a workout, what's exactly happening in the body that makes recovery so essential?
So the only thing that's happening at a cellular level is that every time you exercise and the higher you push your body, your core temperature at a cellular level is increasing. Once the temperature is increasing, there is inflammation being produced. So the byproduct of exercise is, yes, you are getting stronger, you are getting fitter, and you're getting fitter and stronger by the resistance that you're applying. Subsequently, you're also increasing the inflammation in the body. Recovery is the process of reducing the inflammation and returning a cell to a healthy state. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And that's what's actually happening in the body, is that inflammation and the core temperature is going up. Now, temperature is a very, very integral thing. I remember there was a research study done where we looked at thermoregulation. And thermoregulation is the body's ability to manage temperature through sweating. We're one of the few species that actually sweat. And they calculated that if someone ran at 5 kilometers an hour, which is very, very slow, if that species could not thermoregulate, it would reach 40 degrees. The temperature, our human body, would get up to 40 degrees in about 2.5 hours, which would allow it to slowly shut down at 40 degrees. But because of our ability to thermoregulate sweat, the same human body at 5 kilometers an hour can run for more than 130 hours. So you're moving from 2.5 hours to 130 hours because of our ability to thermoregulate, which is essential for recovery. Now, when I told you that athletes teach themselves how to recover at low intensities, that's fundamentally what they're doing, is they're managing their body's ability to thermoregulate, bring its core temperature down at lower exercise levels as opposed to higher exercise levels. And it's not a complete rest day. But what's happening in the body? Inflammation is being produced because of the heat. Right. And because of that inflammation, the body is starting to slow down.
Sure. Yeah, very nice. So, what happens after a long day? Most of us pop a pill, painkiller, and that's our way to deal with recovery. So, is that right? Are there any other alternatives to deal with recovery?
So it depends on what type of exercise you did. If you did something very, very high intensity, for example, where your heart rate was above 70, 75% of max for a certain period of time, then your muscles would have produced something called lactic acid. Lactic acid would slowly get your muscles to function slower and slower as it starts to crystallize in the muscle. Low intensity exercise, something below, say, 60% of maximum heart rate, 120 to 130 beats per minute in most people, would start to flush that lactic acid. So it would serve as recovery. So if you're doing high intensity, just going for a walk is recovery, right, as opposed to rest. The other ways of recovery are you can do cryotherapy, which is cooling the body through water, or now there are machines that thermoregulate. Flushing, which is using a shower, extreme hot, extreme cold. You're creating this pulsating impact inside the body, which is starting to increase the blood circulation in the body. Then we know things like infrared saunas work. Breathwork is a phenomenal way to also enhance your recovery. And now there's a whole host. We're seeing vibration. We're looking at EMF technologies that promote recovery. The recovery science is now exploding to the nth degree. But right at the pinnacle of it is rest. So everything stacks upon good sleep.
Yeah, as in sleep is called the master regulator. So what does that exactly mean? As in how important is sleep in all of this? Let's talk more about it.
So sleep is, it's the number one recovery tool in your arsenal. Okay, because your body starts to thermoregulate and your hormones start to regulate while you're sleeping. Okay, whilst you're not sleeping, stress is building up in various other levels, and your body's ability to protein synthesize, to oxidate, to regulate hormones is compromised while you're awake. So good sleep is essential. For our athletes, this is why we track sleep. This is why we even ask them to sleep between practice sessions at lunch. Most stadiums around now have sleeping cabins where we try to monitor sleep and look at sleep very, very intricately, because the quality of deep sleep that a person has will determine how hard we can push them. So coaches, sports scientists, high performance coaches now will determine how hard you push a body, not the previous day, but on the quality of the deep sleep that they've had, because that will determine the recovery. Right. So I even tell my corporate executives, I said, hey, if you want to really, really be attuned with the science of recovery, then you should have some flexibility over your day, and what you do in a day should be determined by the quality of sleep you've had. So you wake up in the morning, and then you should have some degree of flexibility with how you adjust your day, knowing that the first half of your day you will be cognitively sharper, right, and that will decline. So start to do things and arrange things in accordance with this.
So your fitness and your day does not start in the morning, but it starts probably the earlier day before you go to sleep.
Everything starts the previous day. Everything is linked. How you go to sleep will determine the quality of your sleep. The quality of your sleep will determine the quality of the first half of your day. The quality of the first half of your day will determine the quality of the second half. It's like in Test cricket. Nobody even watches Test cricket anymore, but we have this beautiful saying in Test cricket where they say, if you win the first hour, you'll win the first session. If you win the first session, you'll win the first day. If you win the first day, you'll most likely win the first test. If you win the first test, you'll win the series.
And really so is true in life.
Yeah. 100%.
Right. So how would recovery be looked at for somebody who's dealing with chronic pain, chronic back pain, let's say?
For someone who's dealing with chronic back pain, there's two elements to it. One is the management of pain. The second is recovery and the strengthening to alleviate that pain and be in a healthy process. So for anyone who has pain, the first thing we got to do is we got to look at pain management. So what are the things you can do? We can do stretching, we can use soft tissue. Icing has beautiful analgesic and anti-inflammatory properties in there. There are products out there right now which are topical, sort of creams and patches that also help manage pain. So pain management is critical because they cannot exercise if they have chronic pain. So the first thing we got to do is alleviate that pain completely before we can even get there. Once we alleviate pain, how we start to introduce movement into it is critically important because I told you cells have a memory in it, right? Now, when we're doing rehabilitation for someone who has chronic pain, after we've spent all of this time alleviating the pain, getting rid of the pain completely, the last thing we want to do is bring in a recovery or a exercise strengthening regime that triggers that pain. So we've got to slowly start to raise the bar, but we've got to be below triggering that pain threshold because that's what we don't want to do. If we can stay below that and keep strengthening, then we are recalibrating the brain's memory or the tissue memory around pain, and that's how you get stronger. So it's a very intricate balance between pain alleviation, strengthening, recovery, and then sustaining it thereafter.
Interesting. We have talked about the importance of sleep, but other than sleep, if there has to be one simple recovery practice that one could sort of adopt in daily life, what would that be?
I think the most important thing for recovery is mobility. Because once you start moving, so much happens in your body. You start to activate the right muscle patterns. You start to have cognitive benefits and one of the cognitive benefits of walking, for example, for more than 15 minutes is you get brain-derived nootropic factor, which helps you stimulate new neural connections. For kids even, we tell them to sleep. Why? Because your brain also develops new neural connections whilst you're sleeping. So whether you're a founder of a company, whether you're a student, whether you're an elderly person, sleep is critically important for those new neural connections. So mobility is critically important as the one thing that I would ask them. Just move, just walk. Once you start walking, everything will happen. You'll get new firing patterns. The body's respiratory system will get stimulated. The cardiovascular system gets stimulated. Cognitive function happens. And if you want to take this to the next thing, because inflammation is the one thing that truly impacts recovery, is starting to be mindful of the food we're eating. Mm-hmm. The reason I say this is because certain foods trigger inflammation. So for example, lactose and gluten, whether you're intolerant or not, they would trigger inflammation in your body. If they're triggering inflammation, before your body starts to heal and starts to get stronger, it's going to try to get rid of that inflammation. So a large amount of the energy that you spend in a day is in getting rid of that inflammation. So if you eat foods that don't trigger inflammation, all of your body's energy is going towards strength building. So starting to be really mindfully conscious of everything is really the secret to vitality.
So there is a role that food also plays in this.
Food plays an absolutely massive role.
Thanks, Shayamal. Recovery isn't just about downtime, it's about bounce back power. In the next segment, we'll discuss the fuel behind all of this, that is nutrition, and its role in our aging journey. Stay tuned. Thank you.